So I think that sense of there's a kind of sweetness too in the sense of the of loss, the longing. There's a kind of sweetness in every experience, that the whole amplitude of human experience. I remember speaking to a couple of friends about this, about how, in a way, I can remember when my beloved cat Alyosha died, and I think he was really the first being that I was intimately close with, that I'd walk through every moment of death with, through the getting sick, through the terrible chaos of the vet's office, to the being with him, bringing him home, and the whole night, and the burial, and all of that, and how the grief and the sorrow was fitting, and it had a flavor and a taste that was nourishing and seemed to make the world wider and more alive in a way. And it seemed to be his final gift to me, was the walking through his death with him. So every appearance and disappearance, if we aren't fighting with it and we simply receive it and let it affect us and change us, then we don't need to be afraid of our lives. So with the Buddha's story, we left him, we found him first when he had achieved the perfect life. And then where there was the discovery of, I guess, his own sense of that there are, that maybe that there's a sorrow in the separation, of the experience of separation, that is required to hold myself even in a perfect life, and that is inextricable in that kind of way of being in one's life. And then all of the effort of the austerities, and then to the point where he almost left life itself, that sense of starvation. And then we come to his Buddha's Enlightenment Night, which I was reading the story the other day, and I love the image of when he comes to the Bodhi tree, and he tries to sit on the various sides of it, on the west side, on the south side, on the north side, and it tips into hell, and there's no sense of rest and stability. And then he sits in the side facing east, facing, I don't know, I guess it's facing the great silence and the life appearing. And he finds the place that doesn't move, the immovable seat. I think that's another way of describing your sitting meditation, that you can feel it formally when you sit, but you can feel it any time you rest in the center of the silence, that it's an immovable seat. And it's not like it comes from being strong or being invincible. It itself is like, it's like the center of where the universe is spinning around. It's immovable because it lets everything move. I guess that's how you could describe it. It lets everything move around it, and therefore it's the center, and it's immovable. So that night, He sits, he finds a seat that does not move, and Mara appears. And I think this is a beautiful image of what practice is, where in the story of Buddha, Mara appears, you could say it's his own mind that it was beautifully, Mara in the story is everything that the Buddha himself would be afraid of, or would be seduced by, or would be anything you would try to hold off or try to get, Mara is offering. And you can feel that in your own mind when you sit in meditation, that there will be currents of feeling tone, of the emotional body. There'll be images rising up to pull you one direction or another, images to frighten you, images to promises of power, promises of love, whatever your mind is doing, pay your mortgage off, or whatever the thing is that it's offering you, or frightening you with, hurling spears of, oh God, you got to pay off that student debt, or you have to make that phone call to your sister who's, whatever your mind is doing, that's Buddha's mind. And you're sitting in the seat that does not move, the immovable seat of your own being. And every person that's here has a sense of that. If you're here, you know about this. And in some traditions, I've heard the story told that somehow there's a sense that he's not affected by it, but that's not the Chan understanding of it. It's that all of those feelings, the seductions and the fear and the longing and the grief and the loss is passing through the Buddha unimpeded. He's no longer afraid of the feelings, the images, the parts of his past or his future or his present. Nothing in the world he's at war with. He's no longer at war with his life. And then his life can pass through him and change him. And then he's not afraid, and you are not afraid of that territory as you move through your life. And the more you practice, the wider the sense of freedom and ease inside yourself. It enlarges. And other people can feel this when you're with them, and you yourself can feel it. And I mean, that's the image of the bodhisattva. The bodhisattva is no longer afraid of the life appearing. So you yourself know about this way of being. So he sits all night, and just as you sit all night, every time you sit, even if it's for 1 minute, it's all night. It's the whole of night. It's the whole of your life. Every moment that you sit. And you yourself are discovering awakening. And in the morning, he looks up as dawn's coming on, and he sees the morning star. And he cries out, with this morning star. And I love that it's Venus, the morning star Venus. There's something about that too, about the goddess of love that is the morning star, the brightest celestial body except for the sun is the Venus. And with this morning star, I and all beings awaken. And it's not that all beings now are purified. They are themselves. They're allowed to become fully themselves and be in the moment of their own transformation of awakening. And they may be, and this is true, so awakening is not like a linear trajectory where you go through all these steps, you awaken, and then you're always, awaken. You'll find that throughout each day, each moment, it's this elliptical movement through being caught in your own hell realms, and then some piece of the universe will step forward, and it won't come from your own good intentions or your own efforts. You'll hear a bird call, or you'll notice the sunlight on a leaf shimmering, and then you'll be back. And at this point, that's the moment where your practice comes in. And those are moments of awakening. Like this morning, sometimes I really like to, right before I give a talk, once I've done all the preparation and, I make like reams and reams on piles of notes. And then I just have to sift through them the day before and or that morning. And then slowly everything gets sort of winnowed down to a couple of pages of material. I have to write things really big with a thick Sharpie pen because my eyesight's not that great. And then I may not even check my notes, but just to know that I can check my notes and actually read them. And so I've got all this settled, and then there's a feeling of I just need to feel the earth. And in a way, that was a moment in the Buddha's Awakening Night where he reaches down and he touches the earth. And that's where you can you can trust the moment that you're in. You can reach and touch the carpet, or you can look at the sky. Let the earth touch you. So I lay down on the carpet. I was, I don't know, not really worrying, but just sort of agitated. Like slightly sick to my stomach, but and feeling like I'd really like to not be sick to my stomach. And so I'm lying down, I look outside, and there's just in the top of a eucalyptus tree behind the house, and some pipes that are sticking up, and some electrical wires running through the sky. And there's this bit of the eucalyptus tree that there's something about the leaves where I think they have some kind of oil on them or something, but certain lights, they catch the light, and they are like they've been gilded with just like this, with gold leaf, as if they have gold leaf and they're shimmering in the light. And it was the morning star, with this morning star. And it's a sense of the separate me that has trouble and could do it right or wrong. There's something to gain or something to lose. All of that falls into abeyance, and there's a sense of being held inside the world. There's a sense of communion. I think of the actual communion. I was raised Catholic, and there's this wonderful ritual where they place the host, the little piece of unleavened bread, on your tongue, and then you're not allowed to chew it. You're supposed to let it dissolve in your mouth, and it's that sense of, and then it's Christ's body. It's supposed to actually be the living body of Christ that then dissolves inside of you. And in a way, that's very much like the same image of, with this host, with this morning star, I and all beings, the sense of myself and others dissolves. I'm going to read you a poem. This is to give you a feel for, this is just like, it's just everywhere. in human experience. It's not something that the Buddhists discovered or have a kind of cornered market on. It's intrinsic to human experience. And this is a poem I really love. It's by Wordsworth, and it's I love this poem, and I was reading about it the other day, and I discovered this. It's called Composed Upon Westminster Bridge, September 3rd, 1802. And I found out he was on his way to, in his youth, when he was a student at Cambridge, during the summer, the first summer, he just hated Cambridge, and he just was a pretty terrible student, and he just wanted to get out of there. So he decided to go on a walking tour of Europe, and he went to the Swiss Alps, and he's walking through the Swiss Alps, and being Wordsworth, he's really not paying much attention. And the next thing you know, he walks into the French Revolution. And there's all this chaos and turmoil around him. And he ends up going back to Cambridge, being changed by that. And then the following summer, he goes back directly to France. And there he falls in love with a French woman. And she gets pregnant. And he stays there for a couple of months. There's all these stories about how they tried to get married, and being the French Revolution, they weren't able to work this out. And he goes back to France, and he goes on with his life, and there's this turmoil in the countries, and he can't get back, and she can't get there. And he eventually falls in love with another woman. So the woman, the French woman, Annette, she has a daughter that's Wordsworth's illegitimate daughter. And he's on his way, September 3rd, 1802, to go meet his daughter, Caroline, for the first time. And he's going to cross the English Channel with his sister, Dorothy. And on their way to go to the boat to cross the channel, they're on Westminster Bridge, and they have this kind of epiphany of like seeing the morning star. And I think it's no accident that the epiphany came to him when he was able to turn towards the east, turn towards a part of his life which had been excluded, and to go and meet his daughter. And here it is. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul, who could pass a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth, like a garment wear, the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. Ships, towers, domes, theaters, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor valley, rock, or hill. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. And that's where he's letting things be themselves, the universe. He's not trying to control anything. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. So I think that's a good place we'll sit